On today's show, Cavs guard Donovan Mitchell named an all-star starter. It's the second time he's a starter in the sixth straight season he's been named an all-star. We're going to talk about that. Plus, Cavs assistant coach Jordan Ott stops by. We talk about the season the team is having, Evan Mobley's growth, Kenny Atkinson as well, because he spent a lot of time with him, and so much more about where the Cavs are headed. So stick around for all that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like 92.3 The Fan, my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. Make it your first listen every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show, of course, is sponsored by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. And right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win your first bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started today. Donovan Mitchell named an all-star starter. This is the second time in Donovan's career, second time in the last 3 seasons that Mitchell's been named a starter on the all-star team. It is the 6th consecutive year that Donovan's been named an all-star. Of course, all 3 seasons that he has played in Cleveland, plus his final 3 seasons in Utah, he was an all-star. So now we're at 6 straight. He's obviously very, very deserving of this. He has been, in my opinion, and I think the fact that this is up for maybe a little bit of a debate is the best part about this Cavs season for the team. But in my opinion, he has been the best player on the best team in basketball, or at least the best team in the Eastern Conference. And I think that matters when you talk about the All-Star voting. But I think the way the voting shook out is really interesting. So he finished second amongst fan vote. LaMelo Ball finished first because, of course, LaMelo Ball finished first. I didn't think LaMelo Ball deserved to be an all-star. I don't think he's going to be an all-star now that he's not a starter, but we will get into that on the later edition of Locked On Cavs Today. The Friday 5 going to be coming your way a little bit later on this morning, early afternoon. I will dive deeper into that situation, what it means for Darius Garland, what the all-star voting results mean for Evan Mobley. We'll talk about that stuff too, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to be taken away from the voting results that came out on Thursday night. But Donovan finished second amongst fan vote. He finished first amongst player vote. He finished first amongst media vote. The fact that he's getting as much respect as he is, I think it's a really good thing because he has obviously changed his game a little bit. It's not that Donovan Mitchell is a different player than who he has been in previous seasons with the Cavs and dating back to Utah. It's that he's being asked to do things differently. And the fact that he has willingly done that, he has willingly elevated other players on this Cavs team, which has helped them get to a great record and first in the East with a pretty big cushion. All of that, I was curious to see how it was going to look how is he going to be treated by players if he's not averaging as many points per game as we're used to seeing Donovan Mitchell average? How's he going to be treated by the media vote, which I think that is everyone that I know that has a media vote, and I do not have one, but everyone that I know that has one takes it very, very seriously. And I trust that they do a good job because historically that I think has always been the most accurate representation of who should actually be an all-star. You know, if you look at the player vote, like it's a little ridiculous. Some of the guys that ultimately gets votes to be starters, like Tristan Thompson, who certainly has a role on this Cavs team. He received 7 votes to be an all-star starter. Now, he had 10 rebounds the other day, was very helpful for the Cavs. He's playing minutes right now with Evan Mobley out, but he got 7 votes to be an all-star starter. Amani Bates, who's played 6 minutes in the NBA this year, got 2 votes. Luke Travers, not played very much. He got a vote. JT Thor got 3 votes to be an all-star starter. So that just kind of brings my point about the player vote being maybe not necessarily the most trustworthy thing, But the fact that Donovan finished first there, first with media, and of course, second with fans, I think it's a really good sign that people are paying attention, not only to what Donovan is doing, but how good this Cavs team is. And the fact that he took a step to the side and decided that, the counting stats are not going to be the most important thing for him, that it's going to be about winning, and it's going to be about the growth of the team, and it's going to be about doing things the right way, and is still recognized as, by his peers, by the media, even by fans, as the best guard in the conference, or the second best guard in the conference in the case of the fans. I think that's a really cool thing, that people are appreciating what he's doing this year, as well as the winning that the Cavs are doing this year. I think all of that is really cool. And I will talk about on the Friday Five what this means in terms of Darius Garland's All-Star case, Evan Mobley's All-Star case, because I think there's some interesting things that came out of the voting results. But I wanted to make this segment about Donovan just because he deserves it. He has been, in my opinion, the best player on this team. Yeah, maybe Darius Garland has had some higher highs. Maybe Evan Mobley has had some higher highs. But I think that Donovan has been the most consistent guy. And I think when the team needs someone to step up, more often than not, it's Donovan Mitchell. And I'm not talking about late game situations necessarily. I'm talking when you need somebody for a full 48 minutes. Donovan Mitchell has more often than not been the guy the Cavs can turn to and say, hey, we need some help tonight. You saw it in the game against Minnesota. You saw it in the game against Indiana right after they lost to the Pacers that very next game they played. You've seen it on several occasions. You saw it in Boston, the game they lost, where Darius Garland had a bad game, but Donovan Mitchell stepped up and said, no, we're going to do everything we can to keep this winning streak going. Ultimately, of course, they didn't. But the fact that he's able to channel that at will, while also balancing taking that step to the side so that Evan Mobley and Darius Garland can flourish, I think that's a really cool thing. And I think the fact that he's being recognized as an all-star starter, a very deserving all-star starter, but I think that's a really good thing. And I'm glad that the voting turned out this way. I'm also, truthfully, I'm glad LaMelo Ball is not a starter. I don't think he deserves to be an all-star. His numbers are great in terms of the counting stats, but he's not an efficient player. He's not a winning player right now, in my opinion. It doesn't mean those things can't change in the future at some point, but right now, that's how I see things with him. And I think that him not being there, and the fact that it is Donovan Mitchell and Jalen Brunson as the backcourt starters for the Eastern Conference. And I can't put into my brain what the All-Star game is going to look like with this new format. But the fact that those guys are the starting guards in the Eastern Conference, I really think that they got it right. I think that the players got it right. I think the media got it right. The fans, I can't say did because of the LaMelo Ball angle. But if you look at the Eastern Conference starters as a whole, where it's those two in the backcourt, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Karl Anthony Towns, it's hard for me to really have any disagreements. I will, again, Friday 5, talk about Evan Mobley and his case. I think things broke pretty well for him and for Darius Garland, so I will get into that a little bit later. But I've got Jordan Ott, Cavs assistant coach. He's been a long-time assistant for Kenny Atkinson. The two go way back. They first worked together when they were in Atlanta over a decade ago with the Hawks. So it's a really great conversation. That's going to be segments 2 and 3 on this edition of Locked On Cavs. Really enjoyed the time. Super grateful for Jordan being able to take time on the road trip. We did talk prior to the game against the Houston Rockets. So, I mentioned the record being 36-6 or whatever it was before that game. Obviously, that has changed because they lost to the Rockets the other night. But again, really fun conversation. Learn a lot about basketball. Jordan is a very bright guy, certainly knows what he's talking about. But I think it's something that you guys are going to enjoy. I really think the stuff he says about Evan Mobley is stuff that you're going to want to listen to. So stick around because that is coming your way next right here on Locked On Cavs. But first, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting. As if they could get more exciting, they can because you've got FanDuel. FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs more exciting. They make the NBA regular season more exciting. Whatever you're looking for to make more exciting, FanDuel probably can help you out. One of the things that I, of course, am keeping an eye on are the NBA Finals odds. Cavs are in third right now at plus 750, only behind Boston and OKC. I think that those are going to change a little bit. I just think that the Cavs, at a certain point, they're not going to overtake either of those teams, but I think it's going to become a closer grouping than it is right now. The other thing I keep watching How many wins does FanDuel expect the Cavs to have? Right now, the win total, which if you remember before the season was set at 48.5. And I told you, man, I love that over. Cavs are not winning anything less than 49 games. Well, right now it is at 63.5. That's minus 130. FanDuel very much expects this Cavs team to win at least 64 games. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. If you disagree, you might find a little bit of value. I don't necessarily see it that way, but that could be the place to go. So what you need to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. Again, that's FanDuel.com to join today. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Now it's time to hear from Cavs assistant coach Jordan Ott. Jordan, very much appreciate you taking time to join Locked On Cavs today. Just want to start with the overall team success you guys have had this year. You're 36-6 as we sit here recording this on Wednesday afternoon. I think that a lot of people expected this Cavs team to be a really good team. I don't know that anyone necessarily expected this Cavs team to be a team that was 36-6. I just kind of want to get started with, when did you know that you guys were able to put together this sort of, I don't even want to call it a special start anymore because you're over halfway through the season, but a truly special season?
Well, it definitely wasn't in the preseason. I think we come out of that preseason a little, not nervous, but just knew that we had a lot of work to do. And then, I think winning in the Garden early in the season, we knew that they were good. Then you just kind of get on this run. So many different ways we would win games, so many different players, which attributed to our depth. But once we started to go, and then it starts to get up there, 9, 10, I think that was around the Golden State game. Then you start to see, okay, Boston's coming, that's at 15, 16. So I think around that time, we're like, okay, this is a unique group that we're blessed to be around. And then you didn't know even after the winning streak of how long it was going to go. But yeah, over halfway through, and definitely happy where we're at, but a long way to go.
And Kenny mentioned that the other night after the game on Monday afternoon against the Suns. He was asked about just where the team is at and, where things have gone. And he goes, well, in the preseason, we were 0-4. So there was a lot of nervousness going around about what is this team actually going to be? Because typically in preseason is not always the biggest indicator of success, I'm sure but to go 0-4, you mentioned some nervousness. Was that a real thing? Like, were you actually a little apprehensive about what is this team actually going to look like compared to, all of the talk coming out of training camp about how happy everyone was with where things were at?
Yeah, I believe so. You just don't know until you know, and as much as film work and time you can do looking back on previous seasons, like, obviously, we made some changes. We made some changes in style of play. We knew we were deep, but we didn't know exactly where. Like even Isaac, who was coming into the camp a little bit later. And then we had a bad game. I think our third game was at Detroit. Then that fourth game in Chicago in the preseason, we played our starters. We played our guys into the fourth quarter just to build them up into their minutes, similar minutes to a regular season game. So I think after that game, we were just a little cautious or like questioning some things, and then obviously the season has started, and we know that the preseason results don't usually translate to the regular season, so we're thankful for that.
So one of the things that has stood out to me about this team and this group of guys in the locker room, almost after every game, win or lose, and it's easy, I think, to look at the record and say things are awesome, and obviously things are awesome for you guys, but this is a group that, to my sense, has not let the record dictate how they feel. It's about the process. It's about building good habits. And it's ultimately about what this team can potentially accomplish in April, May, and June. How does this group stay, I guess, even keeled and keep their eyes on the process rather than celebrating the results every night?
Danny, I think a lot of coaches talk about process. I think, over an 82 game season, it's easy to just try to talk about process, but day one of training camp, before day one, actually day zero, we get into Sarasota, and as we met with the team, Kenny told the group that we're going to have a pre-practice routine for everyone. And it, that we call them multivitamins, where they spent 20 minutes in the training room, 20 minutes in the weight room, getting one-on-one time, and then 20 minutes on the court. So the pre-practice routine really set a foundation to what we hope to continue into the season. And I think a lot of players have their own pre-practice, pre-game routines of how they get themselves going. But you also forget we have some young guys here, even though they're really good players, that needed a little bit of guidance and direction of what we expected of them. And it's really the off-court stuff. Everyone gets their shots, they get their work on the court, but this ability to maintain health, which we luckily have pretty much. We've had a long string of good health. I think some of that started not only there in Sarasota, but even before in September, August. I mean, Kenny's talked about that for years, the off the court stuff. And he announced to the team in September Open Gym about how important September is for the bodies, not only just on the court, but off the court.
Yeah, and I think that's something that has really shown through, because injuries happen to every team. You guys have dealt with them. You've not dealt with anything major, but you have dealt with them. And I think that is, results of that just true buy-in to not just the on the court stuff, but the off the court stuff. How rare is it for a team to be able to buy in so easily to all those things that are about more than just the ball going through the basket?
Yeah, I think if we were honest, even as new coaches here, that it was the foundation that was set before, and kind of the experiences they've had over the last couple of years have really helped us. I think they got to the point in the summer where, okay, we want to change, and we have to embrace this change. And some of it is the extra work off the court. And Max had an unfortunate incident that took him out for a long time, but outside of him, we really haven't had to deal with a ton of injuries. So we knew we had great depth. And you knew when you have great depth, you want that depth to play every night, and especially over the course of the regular season. I think that really helps you win some games. And along with that was the sacrifice of taking some less minutes. And we've kind of just had like this perfect storm of all the momentum moving in the right direction to lead us to a point today where we are playing well. But how do we continue to move everyone down that path, even though we've had a long stretch of good play?
So one of the biggest reasons for the success of the team this year has been what you guys have been able to accomplish on the offensive end of the floor throughout the entire season, with the exception of like 3 or 4 days. You guys have been number 1 in offensive rating. Obviously, there have been some changes from the system the team ran last year to what you guys are running now. But what, to you, as you look at this, what are the biggest reasons why what you guys wanted to do offensively has flourished in the way that it has?
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest surprise, right, for all of us. We knew this was a defensive-minded group. They've been great defensively over the last handful of years. But I think it comes down to great players. Young improving players, which helps. Great depth. The roster build itself with so much skill. But it really does begin with Don and DG. Don's sacrifice and his ability to make tough shots. That's why he's a superstar. His shot-making ability, I'm fortunate to be around a couple of superstars, and their ability to make tough shots when you need them makes them superstars. And that, with the combination of his sacrifice of allowing other guys to be more involved, just his minutes in general, allows us to use our depth a little bit more. And DG's speed and skill, he is so good offensively. It kind of is the straw that stirs all this, what we're trying to do. And reminds me a lot of Kyrie, if I'm honest. Just his overall shot making off the dribble. He's an elite passer. His ability to play pick and roll with everyone. And then his likability, his spirit, his joy kind of unites our group. He's got an incredible connection with Tristan, and Tristan's leadership helps DG be more vocal. So between those two obviously help our offense. And then Evan, Evan's just development as a young guy. Now he's kind of more involved. You see him in the middle of the floor, whether he's the 4 or the 5. His ability to stretch the floor, which everyone talks about, but also his ability to handle. It's just unique, almost 7 feet tall, ability to dribble and pass, and then now shoot. That can kind of hopefully take us to a new dimension. But there's across the roster. The shooting piece is real. Everyone basically can shoot it outside of Jay and Tristan, and Ty's shot making and confidence early in the season that really helped jumpstart us. And Karras is again another guy that's had to sacrifice, but he's also evolved. Like if you think about him as an offensive player, how much more efficient he is now than what he used to be, which comes with a level of trust, which I know he has in us, which we know we have in him. And then his ability to be both. Like at times he has to be a creator, but when we're healthy, he's more of a spot up guy and elite defender. So, it's up and down the roster, but I think it's always come back to the players, Danny. But and then I do think some of our concepts, hopefully have helped us take it to a new level.
Today's show was brought to you by Talkspace. Therapy, of course, is a game changer. It can help to manage stress, improve sleep, communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into what could be a pretty busy schedule for you can be quite a challenge. And that's where Talkspace comes in, because Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, and it makes getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, signing up is simple. You can match with a licensed therapist who fits your needs, usually within 48 hours. And it's convenient. You can have sessions from the comfort of your home and even message your therapist between appointments. Plus, Talkspace is covered by many insurance plans. And for most insured members, there's a $0 copay. It's never been easier to prioritize your mental health. As a listener to this podcast, you'll get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, enter promo code SPACE80. That's SPACE80 to match with a licensed therapist today. Again, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDON NBA, and enter promo code SPACE80 to get $80 off your first month and show your support for the show. Again, Talkspace.com/LockedOnNBA, promo code SPACE80. So there's a lot there that is worth following up on, but you mentioned Donovan and Darius first, and that's kind of where I want to go with this, because Donovan's counting stats are down, but if you watch this team every night, you know that there's nothing going on with him other than he has sacrificed for the betterment of the team. He's taken, so I had been saying taking a step back, but someone termed it to me as taking a step to the side, and I think that I like that. Like, that's a little bit more accurate for what his year has been like. But I know you've been around plenty of other stars in the past. And I just am curious, how special is it to see someone who is a superstar in every sense of the word, the way Donovan is, to be willing to take that step to the side and do it in actions and not just saying he's willing to do it?
Yeah, I think that's maybe, if not the number one, high up on the list of why our record is our record. Everyone talks about the person. Everyone knows Don is the person, but everyone's a competitive athlete. And some of those counting stats matter to almost everyone. Whether you're a coach or a player, at some point stats are going to be referenced. But it's his ability to be coached, I think, is different. Obviously the shot making is superstar level, but his ability to be coached, not only by the coaches, but by his teammates. And they trust that he'll listen. He shows the ability to listen and then change or adapt to what they're asking him to do. That's what's unique, in my opinion. And we know we need him at the highest of high levels when we get into those tight games right now in the regular season and in the playoffs. We've all seen him do it in the playoffs. We're going to ask him to do it again. Hopefully, our skill level and our growth of the rest of the roster helps him take a little lesser role at times in the playoffs, but hopefully also his minutes may help him feel better into the playoffs or later in the season when we need him. So I think he has an incredible feel for what this team is, and we know we can't go where we want to get to without him.
Right. I think the thing that has most impressed me about his season is the sense of the moment that he has, where when you guys need him to go out and score 35, like against Indiana coming off a loss last week, he's able to step up and do that. When you guys need Darius Garland or Evan Mobley to have a big night, he's able to sense that too. And I think that is one of the most impressive parts of his season. And then with Evan Mobley, we've seen him take a leap very clearly. And every time someone is asked about Evan on the offensive end of the floor, because I think we already know, like, he's already a great defensive player and only going to continue to get better. But on the offensive end of the floor, people talk about how he's really not even scratching the surface of what he can be. If you pull out a crystal ball, what do you see Evan Mobley looking like at his full potential?
Yeah, it's tough. It's like you hate to throw him out there without him taking those logical steps that we all want to see him take. I spent a lot of time with AD in LA. I'd say that's a logical progression. But Evan's shooting ability, who knows where it goes? His
Right.
shooting ability, who knows where it goes? His ability to play with JAA is unique. Not all 7-footers can play with another big. I think the thing that people don't talk about enough is his ability to translate literally something we'll talk about pregame. He's able to translate it onto the court and complete the move or complete the positioning that night. And at that age, I think that's so unique. He's so incredibly smart defensively. Offensively, he's able to take these steps because of his mind. Not only does he have the physical gifts, but his mind is as high a level as I've seen as a young guy. I haven't been around that long, but his ceiling is, I don't know if there is a ceiling. Again, I think he has scratched the surface. He doesn't know how good he can be. He believes he can be that good. I think his teammates knew that coming into the season, and now I think maybe the rest of the league has seen it, see it put to action.
So you said you haven't been around that long, but you've been in the NBA for over a decade at this point, and you've spent a good amount of that time, not all of it, but a good amount of that time with Kenny Atkinson, dating back to days in Atlanta, I believe. How has Kenny changed as a coach since you first met him so long ago?
Yeah, my first year he was in Atlanta for sure. My first year, just different roles. I think even the two different head coaching spots. Very fortunate to be around him for that long and to continually see him from an assistant to a head coach with a really young roster, a roster that's not nearly as talented as this roster. When we started in Brooklyn, no draft picks. So just a thought process of finding wins didn't always translate to the standings at that time, but his work ethic that everyone will talk about, that's the same, it's the same as it was 12 years ago. I do think over time he has delegated definitely more here in Cleveland than he did in Brooklyn, which allows him to spend his time somewhere else. I think also he's just shifted some priorities. Like, it hasn't shifted from player development. We talk about players. There's no head coach that talks more about players and how they improve than him on the court, but also off the court with the use of analytics. But also in game, just his feel for the team, what the team needs, the zone, as you've seen, he gets to it pretty quick. His feel for the game and how the game, even the other night, against Gobert in Minnesota without Evan, trying to think of ways to maximize the depth that we have. We changed Jay's sub pattern to where we went smaller against Gobert with Dean at the 5. Those things come from him, and that's where I've seen a definite shift in game, changing more, has a great feel for the team, what the team needs, and how to win that night. But the core of them, I think, is pretty similar to what I saw 12 years ago.
So one of the things that I know has stuck out to me and a lot of people is the incorporation of other sports. You guys have notably played pickleball. You had a touch football game during training camp. A couple weeks ago, you guys had a soccer shootout, if I'm not mistaken, where players got to call coaches up to be the goalie. Who called you out? Did they score on you?
Answer's J.A. So Jay went before. Jay, I forget who he scored on before, but he towed it because he's not a soccer player. He towed it and kicked it pretty hard. So then my thinking before was, I'm going to guess. So I'm going to guess like a goalie, like a goalkeeper in soccer, and I guessed wrong.
Man, that's tough.
Cool.
That's tough.
Yeah.
I could absolutely see him being somebody that just absolutely, kicks the ball through the wall, basically, because of just putting the toe on that ball and just absolutely drilling it. That's awesome, though.
I think he might actually called out Kenny to start, and then I got the second one. But yeah, he definitely towed it the second time. I just guessed wrong.
My money would have been on him or Karras, just because the connection between all four of you guys really goes back.
Karras may have had Kenny. I'm not sure. Karras may have had Kenny. I'm not sure.
I will have to ask next time I see him. But Jordan, very much appreciate you taking the time out to do this out of your time in Houston. Stay safe down there. They're getting some snow. I know they're not used to snow, but stay safe and good luck tonight against the Rockets, man.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today. Thank you for making it your first listen every day. Also, if you are not subscribed to Locked On Cavs daily newsletter, you are missing out because it is your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free right now at lockedondaily.com. Thank you to Jordan Ott for joining the show today. Thoroughly enjoyed that conversation with him. Hope you guys did as well. And again, stay tuned for the Friday Five. Going to come at you with 5 minutes on 5 different topics with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That's going to be hitting your podcast feed if you're subscribed. Again, make sure you're subscribed. That'll hit your podcast feed a little bit later on this morning, early afternoon. And of course, it'll be on YouTube at the exact same time. So keep it locked right here to Locked On Cavs. Cavs take on the Sixers tonight. First end of a back-to-back. I will be back talking about that one on Saturday morning right here on Locked On Cavs.